welcome back to the vlog. Doing the intro a little bit different today because today's session is a little bit different. Today we are at the Hard Rock Casino over in Tampa, Florida. Tomorrow starts the Seminole Hard Rock and WPT Poker Series. Starts with a $500 buy-in, $1 million prize pool guarantee tournament. And it's pretty much been the talk of the poker community for about the last month or so, and just about everybody over in Orange City was talking about coming over to play in this tournament series. So even though I'm not playing in the series, I thought there's probably going to be a lot of action out here to be had, and so I wanted to come over and try to get a piece of it. It's just after 1 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, and they already have 15 tables running, including 9 tables of 1-2, so not bad on a Tuesday afternoon. So we're gonna get in there. It's been about 10 years since I've played here. The whole place is different. There's a whole brand new building. I don't even know if I parked in this garage before. So it's gonna be a new experience. Can be excited to see what it's like playing in a different casino and what the player type over here is like, and see how the action is. So let's get to it. The max buy-in at Hard Rock is $300, not the standard $200 max buy-in that I'm used to. So that's what we buy in for. Let's get to the first hand. We're in the small blind and we look down at pocket kings. We get a call from the button before I bump the action up to $12. The button calls, and so we're off to see a flop. The flop is 10 queen ace with 2 hearts. I go ahead and lead out for $25 here, and the button calls, so we're off to see a turn. The turn is a card I'm not particularly crazy about. It's the king of diamonds, so this brings a second flush draw on the board and brings a 4-liner to the straight. I check and the button bets $50. There's a chance that the button could have all the jacks in this situation. He could also be on one of the flush draws, or perhaps could be holding 2 face cards and have 2 pair. It's a good size bet for me to go ahead and continue on and see a river to see if I can improve. So that's why I do. I go ahead and make the call, and we're off to see the river. The river is a 7 of diamonds, so it brings the backdoor flush in. I check over to the button, and luckily he checks right behind. I table my hand, and he flips over queen jack offsuit for the straight. So not exactly the way I wanted to start this session, but that's okay. It's the first hand. We'll get him next time. We're in late position. We look down at queen jack offsuit. There's 2 callers, and I bump the action up to $12. The hijack calls, as do the original 2 limpers, so we're off to see a flop 4 ways. The flop is 8-9 king rainbow. When the action gets to one of the middle position players, he goes ahead and leads out in this position. He bets $16. I'm the only caller in this situation, so we're off to see a turn heads up. The turn is another one of those cards I didn't necessarily want to see. It's a jack. I check and the player bets $35. I do have a gut shot straight draw and I have a pair, so I think my hand's a little bit too strong to fold in this case, so I go ahead and make the call, and we're off to see the river. The river is a 7, so now 10 jack gets there, but that's not necessarily the hand that I'm putting him on. I check it over to him. He puts out a very favorable bet, a bet of $35. I'm probably behind in this situation, but because of the price, I don't necessarily think I can make the fold in case he's trying to push me out of this hand. So I go ahead and I make the call. I make the call, and my opponent flips over pocket 8s for the flop set. So I never put him on 8s. This was a hand that I played very, very poorly. I go ahead and add on another $100 to top my stack back up, and we'll play another hand. We're in middle position now, and we look down at pocket 10s. There are 2 limpers, and once again I bump the action up to $12. Both the limpers call, so we're off to see a flop 3 ways. The flop is deuce 3-4, all spades. I have the 10 of spades in my hand, so all things considered, not a terrible flop. It checks to me, and I bet $25. One of the limpers calls, the other one folds, so we're off to see the turn heads up. The turn is a 4 of diamonds, so it pairs the board. The action checks through on this one, so we're going to a river for free. The river is an 8 of diamonds. And in this instance, my opponent leads on this card for $50. I don't really know where I stand in this hand. I don't put him on a 4, so I'm not worried about that. He called my action on the flop, he checked turn, and then he led the river. He could theoretically have a small flush. He could have 5s, 6s, 7s, maybe 9s. Again, I'm in a situation where I don't know what my opponent has, and I've made 2 really bad calls to start this session. So I decide to go ahead and let this hand go and try to find a better spot to make my move. We're in the big blind, and we look down at ace 10 of hearts. There's 3 callers and I bumped the action up to $15. Only one of the limpers calls, so we're off to see a flop heads up. The flop is 10-8-4 with 2 diamonds, so this is a pretty good flop for my hand. I go ahead and lead out for $25 here, and my opponent very quickly shoves all in. He only has $65 total, so it's only $40 more for me to call, and I really don't think I have any other play in this situation except to make the call, so that's what I do. When I call, I ask if he has a pair, and he says, yeah, I need an 8. So I figure he has maybe ace 8 or king 8 or something like that. And he flips over pocket 8s for the flop set. So I don't know why he has to have quads, but he's in really good shape. The board runs out and it does not improve us, so we are now 0 for 4 in our adventures at Hard Rock. Guys, take some notes for this hand because this might be the best example of how not to play a hand. We're in the big blind and we look down at ace queen offsuit. It folds around to the button who raises up to $7. The small blind folds and I go ahead and bump the action up to $17. There's mistake number 1. I probably should have bumped this up to closer to $22 or even $25 to really force out bad hands, but I didn't. I only made it $10 more. The button calls because, of course, he's in position, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is 10-10 deuce with 2 spades. I check and the button checks as well, so we're off to see a turn for free. The turn is a 2 of hearts pairing the board, so I don't think it's necessarily a terrible card. I go ahead and lead out in this position for $25 and the button pretty quickly calls, so we're off to see a river. The river is a 7 of spades, so we don't improve, we don't really get there. I noticed that when this card came out, the button looked really disappointed in the card. He just kind of had this reaction that it wasn't the card he wanted to see, and I should have capitalized on that, but I didn't. I sheepishly checked it over to him, and he leads out for $75. It's almost a pot-sized bet. It feels very bluffy. It feels like he's maybe trying to push me off of a chop, or even I may have the best hand in this situation and he's trying to get me off of it. He could have the flush on the river, though based on the reaction he had, I don't see that being very likely. I tank for about a good 45 seconds here before I end up making the call for some reason. So I call and my opponent flips over 10-4 for the full house. I don't know what I was thinking in this hand. I don't know why I played this hand the way that I did. I don't know what he's doing in that pot for 10-4. Again, a bigger pre-flop raise could have gotten him to fold that hand and I wouldn't have gotten into any of this. But regardless, it's another pot that's not being shipped our way. So what do you do when you're not winning pots and you're just giving away money? You top up for another $100 and you play another hand. We're in under the gun +1 and we look down at ace king offsuit. I go ahead and raise up to $13. Only the small blind calls, and so we're off to see a flop heads up. The flop is 10-6-4. I go ahead and c-bet for $20. My opponent calls, so we're off to see the turn. The turn is another 6. I go ahead and slow down here and check the action, and my opponent checks behind, so we're off to see the river. The river is a 9, so 7-8 gets there, but I don't think that's very likely. Not having anything though, and not really winning a single hand yet though, I kind of sheepishly check over, and my opponent checks back. So I think that's good news. I go ahead and table my hand, and he tables ace-10 for top pair. So once again, another hand that's not going in our favor. We look down at queen-jack offsuit. There's 2 limpers, and I bump the action up to $10. Only the under the gun limper calls, and so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is jack-king-7, all diamonds. The action checks to me. I do have middle pair, but I don't have a diamond in my hand, and I told you I should get aggressive. I should take the betting lead, so what do? I sheepishly check over to my opponent, so we're off to see the turn. The turn is a 7 of spades, pairing the board. My opponent checks to me again, and this time I decide to go ahead and take the lead here, and I bet out for $15, and my opponent folds. So finally, about 3.5 hours into this session, I finally get to scoop a pot my way. Regarding what I said earlier about people folding to pre-flop raises and post-flop bets, the very next hand we look down at pocket queens. When the action gets to me, I lead out for $15, and everyone folds. So that's 2 hands in a row that I get to scoop a very, very small pot my way, but we're finally headed in the right direction. At this point, it's almost 4 o'clock and I have to step away for a Zoom meeting. I'm into the game for $600. I cash out for $206, so we're down almost $400. And I really had to think about what to do in this situation. I can't win a hand. The pots here have been very strange. They seem to be either really, really small or really, really big. There don't seem to be a whole lot of medium-sized pots except the ones that I'm losing. I've never seen so many hands that will have 4 or 5 limpers to a flop. I've never seen so many people fold to $10 pre-flop raises or $15 post-flop bets. It's a really weird situation, and so I decided to go ahead and step away from my meeting. I kind of clear my head and think about what I'm doing. I'm definitely playing terribly, and so I really just kind of need to hit the reset button and come back to the table and play my game. Play the game that I'm used to playing hands in position, betting when I have it, or betting to apply pressure on my opponents. I have to stop checking so many hands through and letting opponents catch up or letting them take the betting lead, because obviously the way I'm playing today is not working to my advantage.